So I wanted to start off today. Today's topic is about finding Allah in His creation, and I wanted to start off with a khutbah beginning, so a muqaddimah of a khutbah, the opening introduction of a khutbah, which talks specifically about nature and all of the creation around and how important they are. Alhamdulillah alladhi ansha'a khalqahu wa bara. All praises to Allah who started all creation. Ansha'a means to initiate creation and left it to grow, or left it to grow while, even like left it alone to grow wild. وَقَدَّمَ أَحْوَالَ عِبَادِهِ غِنًى وَفَقْرًا, and put forth the affairs of the slaves, whether it be in wealth or in like faqra means like when there's a scarcity of something. So if there's an abundance or a scarcity, وَأَنزَلَ الْمَاءَ وَشَقَّ أَسْبَابَ الدَّرَى, and released or kind of revealed the waters, the rain, and شَقَّ أَسْبَابَ الدَّرَى, and opened up or cut open the earth so that the plants can grow. أحمده سبحانه, I praise him again, سبحانه, blessed is he. فهو الذي يعلم ما فوق السماوات وما تحت الثرى ولا يغيب عن علمه دبيب النمل في الليل إذا ترى. So he's the one who knows what's above the heavens and what's underneath the surface, so underneath the earth, and he knows the walking, or he knows of the crawling of an insect, of an ant, as it walks on the surface of the earth. سَبَّحَتْ لَهُ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَأَمْلَاكُهُ. This is kind of my favorite part now. The heavens and all the angels in it, they praised him. They made blessings for him, or they praised him or glorified him. وَسَبَّحَتْ لَهُ النُّجُومُ وَأَفْلَاكُهَا, and the stars and their orbits, they praised him as well. وَسَبَّحَتْ لَهُ الْأَنْهَارُ وَأَسْمَاكُهَا, and the streams and the fishes in them, they praised him as well. وَسَبَّحَتْ لَهُ الْأَرْضُ وَسُكَّانُهَا, and the earth and everything that lives upon it praised him as well. وَسَبَّحَتْ لَهُ الْبِحَارُ وَحِيتَانُهَا, and the oceans and the whales, or the big fish within it, they praised him as well. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَإِلَّا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُ. And is there anything, and there's not anything, except that it praises Allah, if only you would understand. تَفَقَّهُ comes from faqih, so have understanding of their tasbih. And the reason this always hits me is because people look at it from two perspectives. One is that the birds, when they're chirping, the birds, etc., that's their form of dhikr, which is the linguistic, or the linguistic meaning of saying it. But also, if you understand the things that are happening, like the stars in their existence with their orbits, the planetary bodies, etc., everything by existing, they're a reminder to you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are a message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's glory. They're like a manifesto to His glory. And so if you would only understand that, if you'd only sit down and ponder about it, then you would understand that this is all tasbih. And so it's through existing that they do this. And so when we talk about tadabbur and why we do it, and especially tadabbur about the creation, the first thing is, why do we do it? So it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us. And the next thing we talk about is, why did Allah command it? But where is it a command? It's in Surah Mulk, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ طِبَاقًا مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِن تَفَاوُتٍ فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِن فُطُورٍ ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ يَنقَلِبْ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصَرُ خَاسِئًا وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. He's the one who created the 7 earths and the 7 heavens. الذي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا. He created the 7 heavens in floors. ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت. You won't see in your Lord's creation any mistakes or blemishes. فارجع البصر هل ترى. So try review your glance again. See if you can find anything wrong, and then do it again. ثم ارجع البصر كرة. Do it again twice. And then it says that your eyesight will just come back to you really tired. You'll just keep looking and you'll never find anything. And that's something of one of the beauties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, that it's so perfect. And if you look at a tree, for example, how perfect is it that if you look at it from far with a group of trees, it looks like a forest, it looks amazing. Then you move a little bit closer, you zoom in, you see that one tree along with the sky, it still looks very beautiful. Then you zoom in further to the tree and you see these geometric patterns carved into the tree trunk from the rain falling on it, and it still looks beautiful. Then you zoom in further and you look at the leaf and the intricate designs on it, and you understand what they're actually doing. And Brother Daniel did a reminder after Dhuhr Asr about the scientific, some of the intricacies of these creations and how amazing they are. So everywhere you look, you try to find a flaw and you won't find it. So now we know the command is there, we have to do tadabbur, right? So let's move to the second question, which is, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are some of the benefits? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking us to do this thing? And so some of the wisdoms that I could list down myself. So the first one amongst them is to prove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence itself. So if you look at the creation and you ponder upon it and you reflect upon it, it's one way for you to basically realize that there's a greater creation. And one of the arguments that's made in the modern world where we live in literally surrounded, like if we look around us now, we've had to go out of our way to be in the middle of nature. Generally, when we live in our cities and stuff, we're surrounded by buildings and what have you. And alhamdulillah, we're actually lucky to have a few parks around the university. Generally, people just live in these concrete enclaves. They don't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala influencing it. We look at the food and we're like, oh, where does bread come from? Oh, it comes from this factory here, and it comes from flowers across. It's like, no, return back to the source. It's all from the earth. It comes from wheat. Why? When we look at anything else we eat, or how do we get transported? We come from cars. Where the cars come, Mercedes makes them and all that. I'm not saying anything else isn't. Mercedes is all the ones worth buying, right? But who makes the cars? We look at it as a man-made company. We look at it as a man-made tool. We don't look back at where does this metal come from. These elements, how long do they take to form in the earth naturally? Where does the petrol come from, etc. But also, if we look at the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam directly, so this is way back in the day, and how his pondering led us to understand what it was like, what the reality was, that there needs to be a creator. And so if we go to Surah Al-An'am, ayah number 76, and I'll just go directly into it. So the story directly is, when it was nighttime, فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. So when night came upon him, he saw a kawkab, which can mean a star, it was basically a stellar body, basically, or something outside of the earth. So he looked up at the sky, he saw something, he said, "This is my Lord." When it then disappeared, or became, it kind of set, right? So its time finished and it went off. Then he was like, "I don't like the things that disappear." And then the same is repeated. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْقَمَرَ بَازِغًا قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَئِن لَّمْ يَهْدِنِي رَبِّي لَأَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الضَّالِّينَ. So then when he saw the moon, he said the same thing about the moon, that this is something that this is my Lord. And then when that disappeared as well, then he said, "This can't be it either." And then he repeated it with the sun. And he basically said, if my Lord doesn't guide me, then I'm just going to go astray, so I need to be guided by my Lord. But he's using his intellect and pondering on the creation to kind of understand that. And then eventually he reached the conclusion, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, that I've turned my face to the body that created all of this. So it can't be any of these things. So through pondering, basically, he came up with that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. The second thing, right, so we said the first is proving existence. Second thing is, and this is to do with the verses of tafliqat, all the verses that talk about the creation. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we all should, we all profess to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we can't see Him at the same time, and we know very little about Him, then we use His creation as a means to get to know Him. So that's what we're trying to do by looking at Allah's creation. We're trying to know Him better. we're seeing His wisdom, His amazingness, His majesty manifested in His creation. We're trying to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better by seeing these things that He's put on the earth for us. The third thing is to understand these intricacies, to be awe-inspired by how amazing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Say, wow, this is the Creator who does every single thing. There's 7 billion human beings on the world. They're all going about, they're finding their means to live, their sustenance, etc. There's so many animals, there's things in the sea that we still haven't discovered. There's so much going on. The oceans themselves are so complicated. A thunderstorm happening in the middle of the Pacific generates waves that crash on shore in like thousands of miles away. And one tsunami, one little change of the earth can cause a tsunami that kills 200,000 people. Look at how powerful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, yet you are so important. And this is where we can take an example from Surah Nahl. We take examples of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to create you as well. So the same Allah that created all of these things thought it was important enough to put you on the earth as well. So He put you directly on the earth to be part of this system, to be part of this little, like, who are you? But that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing you. You're not nobody. You're Ashraful Makhluqat. You're the Khalifa. You're Allah's representative on the earth, and you're that important. And Surah Nahl really strikes me. There's a lot about Surah Nahl. There's ayahs 10 to 18 are very interesting, but obviously limited time, we can only cover a bit. So 67 to 68, this is like the pinnacle of the story. وَمِن ثَمَرَاتِ النَّخِيلِ وَالْأَعْنَابِ تَتَّخِذُونَ مِنْهُ سَكَرًا وَرِزْقًا حَسَنًا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. So from the fruits of the trees and the grapes, you guys find sakar, like peacefulness or sweetness, and you find beauty, rizqan hasan, you find good sustenance. So honey is one of the best things. It's sweet, but it's good for your health, etc., etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does all of this, right? The amount of trouble that the honeybee goes through. وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ, Allah revealed to the bee to go and take from the mountains a house, and from the trees a house, and from all of these things, and to create all of this to get unproductive honey for who? For you to use. Right? The main end user of this product that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gone through so much trouble to create is you. Not that bear which comes and slaps the thing and he uses it. They use it as well, but the real end user is you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put all of this there for you. And again, with the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how much kind of goes into providing for us is another direct from Surah Al-An'am as well. And this is ayahs 95 to 99. It kind of explains the whole thing. إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَالِقُ الْحَبِّ وَالنَّوَى يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. Allah is the one who creates or keeps going the seeds and everything else. He gets the living thing out of the dead thing, and then He gets the dead thing out of the living thing. So things are dead to start with, like the plants and stuff, they die, they wilt away, they become soil and compost, etc. And from that you get new life. So that whole system. Then وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَكُم مِّن نَّفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ فَمُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمُسْتَوْدَعٌ. So He's the one who created you from one soul. So there's those who stay and those who move on. And قَدْ فَصَّلْنَا الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَفْقَهُونَ. We've explained the signs to those people who want to understand. So this 95 to 99 explains so much about, like literally the whole of creation is explained within these few verses. So that's another aspect of it. So that's the second one. So we went for the first one, which was prove the existence, and the second one, anyone want to shout out? Whoever is tired, it's a very quiet audience now. Go for it. I love loving Allah, so you can, because you can't see him, you want to get to know him for situation. Good, yeah, you got that. The third one of us understanding the intricacies, be awe-inspired, but also realize how important you are. And the purpose of mentioning that is you can make dua for anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes care of all of this. You think getting you out of your, getting you out of jail or whatever trouble you're in, or, next exam you have to do, or, finding a righteous spouse or anything like that is a big deal for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not even a thing. It's just there. Like, you ask Him for it and He can give it to you in a split second. Anything you want, the best job, the best anything. And of course, rewarding you with Jannah, which is our highest goal, this is nothing to Him. And then we go to the fourth. Obviously, I've come up with these four. There's way more, which is a little bit of self-help reasons. And obviously, these are like, from me, and obviously a lot of people helped out. So, this is something I've come up with, like, four main reasons. It's going into nature it helps you directly from stress relief and stuff, but why does that work? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that through the dhikr of Allah, tatma'innul qulub, hearts become restful, or hearts become relaxed. So it's constant dhikr, which we have to do constantly. We have to be constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And literally, this is one of those things that you can look around at the creation around you to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. And so that leads to the third thing. So we started out with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do this. And then we said, why did Allah command us? So we tried to find some of the wisdom. And obviously there's infinite knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has infinite wisdoms. And then we look at the third how. And this for me is the hardest thing. Which is, how do you do this, right? A lot of people say, just sit around, look at the sky. You just stargazing for 2 hours. How is this bringing you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it bringing you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So how do we do this, right? So we look at the adhkar, for example, and we try to make our little rituals out of it. And I've tried to make about three or 4 points. So you get a rule of 3. I'm just trying to keep everything in 3. Of some rules, some things that we can maybe implement. So look at the adhkar of the morning that we're supposed to read after Fajr and the ones after Maghrib. So things like, Allahumma inni asbahtu ushidu. Oh Allah, I came awake this morning, or this morning came upon me. Literally means I'm mourning. I'm mourning today, witnessing you. Ushhiduk wa ushhidu hamalat arshik, and witnessing the carrying of your throne. Wa malaikatik wa jami'a khalqik, and all of your creation. And when we say these, oftentimes we just let them slip off the tongue, like, we just read them off the app on our phone or the card we have or something. But we can try and make that a habit. To try and go, like, on your way home from Fajr, read that while you're walking through the park, because we spend so much time, especially with modern times, with productivity and all that, we're like, I constantly need to be multitasking. So like, if I'm walking, I'm going to be catching up on my text, or I'm going to be listening to something like a podcast or something, which is all, of course, very good, and you're making productive use of your time, but make this a priority. And one of the questions that was asked to one of the teachers was, what do I prioritize? If I have the chance to read Quran or make dhikr, which one should I do? And the teacher said, he's like, what sort of rubbish question is this? How dare you? Quran or dhikr? No, do both. That was his answer. He was like, no, you can't prioritize between Quran or dhikr. Find time to do both. Go on Facebook less. So that's one of the things that we need to learn to do these things constantly, to make them a priority. How much, if we look at our own times, right, our own lives on a day-to-day basis, other than 5 times salah, what time do we consciously dedicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And of course, the state of our salah, sometimes you're there, it's not really focusing towards Allah and remembering Him. The surahs are just going through a routine. So how much time are we dedicating in? So this is some extra time to put it on your daily schedules, to do this, to look at stuff and understand it, and to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through these du'as that we're making constantly. So that's one thing to go through, and to emphasize why we need to learn this so much. In Surah A'raf, ayah 146, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سَأَصْرِفُ عَنْ آيَاتِي الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. سَأَصْرِفُ عَنْ آيَاتِي means I'm going to turn away from my signs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this, He's like, I'll turn away from my signs. These people will not be given guidance. الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. The people who be arrogant or think themselves important or have even like an ounce of arrogance in their heart on the earth without any justification. So they have no right to be proud of these things that you've created. You think you could have manufactured a car or done any of this stuff, like all of the man-made things that we have around, you think any of this was possible without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission, without Him putting the creation on the earth first, without Him giving you these metals or whatever it is that you're using first? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn these people away, and of course we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from ever making us from one of these people. Again, because it says that when Qiyamah comes, anyone with mithqala habbatin min khardal, like anyone with even a mustard seed, which is like tiny, like literally like less than grams, less than grams, milligrams, still. But like you get it, something very small of takabbur in their heart, then they're going to be turned away. So that's why we need to learn how to do tadabbur. So the first was dhikr and doing it properly. Another idea is to do ayah association. So look at verses from the Quran, and that's why I relied heavily on bringing ayahs into this talk. I was a bit afraid it might be a bit too much, but inshallah it's something you can bring that together. So if you look at the first few ayahs in the Quran, especially that were revealed earlier, all about imagery. You've got Surah Duha, which starts out with swearing by وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, by the coming out of the sun and the night when it goes away. So it's all imagery. The Arabs were used to this. They used to live around nature at all times. Another one is Surah Ghashiyah, when it says, أَفَلَمْ يَنْظُرُوا إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. Look at the camel. The camel is one of the most standard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creations. Like it's amazing and intricate and humps and so many things that we know about it, but really it's not that much. Like to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just a thing, it's just one creature. Like if it went extinct, there would be so much more left. And then we look at even like Surah Adiyat, right? وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. Talking about the horse and how the early morning raids and how the hooves are sparking against the stones and how everything is so epic. It's the early hours of the morning. There's wind. Everyone's asleep. Everyone's really completely knocked out. And this horse goes charging into the battle. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Verily, Kanud, like there's a lot of translations with big words and stuff, but really the translation for Kanud is waste man. Like, verily the insan is a waste man. Like, look at insan. It's like comparing it to the horse. It's like all you do to the horse is give it food. And look how loyal it is to you. It charges into battle. It comes into a fight that it has nothing to do. The horse doesn't care about this tribe, but it goes in because you said to it to go, because you're sat on top of it. And look at what Allah's given you, and look at what insan's got instead of it. And look what insan does, just forgets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you get these lessons from it as well, but they're all derived from nature. And then so I just got a few examples of some of the ayahs that we can derive stuff from. So inshallah, bear with me. One of them, and this is literally I asked my mom for help on this, and she gave me pages and pages and pages of just stuff like this one talks about this, and this is scientific miracles. And if you look at for example, Surah Nazi'at, ayah 30, it says وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. And if you look at the way that means, the word daha comes from the ostrich egg, and so we look at the earth and it's shaped like an ostrich, it's a little bit elliptical. All these things we're discovering now that you could put down as scientific miracles. Or another one, خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ كَانَتْ رَتَقًا, that the earth and the heavens were one bit, and then we split them apart. And a lot of people use these scientific things to really go deep into it and be like, oh, this can relate to the Big Bang Theory, this can go there. So there's so much examples that you can derive from that and really go deep into it. And I've picked a few. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. Blessed is Allah, or exalted is Allah, who put literally pillars to keep the sky sky posted up. How else is the sky posted up and it's not falling? And then he made within it a siraj, which is, I really just translated that lamp, but there's like so many words for lamp. Like, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not use misbah in this case, which also means lamp, or just nur or something like that? And he said that the sun is like a siraj, and the moon is like a qamar munira. And that's an ayah that like people can research into and look into. Like, a lot of people have done research into the details, but you look around at that and you go, wow, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this. Look how powerful He is. Another one, and this is one of my favorites because of what comes after. الله الذي سخر لكم البحر لتجري الفلك فيه بأمره. Allah is the one who sent forth. So these waves and stuff are all from Allah's will, that He set forth the oceans for you, for the لتجري الفلك فيه بأمره, for the tides to work in it with His permission. وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you can find good from it, you can find your benefit from it, and maybe you're going to thank Allah. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِّنْهُ, and He put forth for you everything that's in the heavens, everything that's in the earth, all of it. جَمِيعًا مِّنْهُ is all for you. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. For this there are signs for people who think. And then this is like an extra bonus bit. I was reading it for this talk, and I found these two verses. And then I just looked at the next page. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يَغْفِرُوا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ أَيَّامَ اللَّهِ لِيَجْزِيَ قَوْمًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Say to those who believe, forgive those who don't believe in لا يرجون أيام الله. They don't believe in Allah's days. They don't believe in what Allah did. ليجزي قوما بما كانوا يكسبون. It's saying to the believers, ليجزي قوما بما كانوا يكسبون means that every people will be given what they earned. But you have to tell me if I go over, because I can just completely go on and on, inshallah. But every people will be granted what they earned. So it's literally like an extra message at the end of it for people who are getting angry for very good reasons, right? Which is, these people are not accepting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm so annoyed. We keep trying to tell them to accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We keep trying to, and this can even be in action, like they can be Muslims, but in action you're like, why are these guys not, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly? Why are they still engaging in these evil activities? And you get upset at them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, chill out. It's fine, it's good that but forgive these people. Leave that on your heart. Leave this bad blood out of yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant everyone what they earn. Everyone will get what they have coming to them. And it's literally like you read this for the purpose of reflecting in nature, and you get closer to Allah through that. But everyone, so you get an extra message after it because you looked at the next page. So that's something a little bit extra that you get out of it, and that's something that's very important. I'm going to conclude on that. There's a little thing before that, which is so this is my last point. So bear with me. The Anbiya, right? All the prophets were sent, and at some point they were shepherds, right? They looked after sheep. They went out. All they did was look after sheep. It's the lowliest of lowly. Like it's the job it's like the minimum wage job. Right? It's what the high school students, or like at that time, like the kids did. If you were like 11, 12, 15, etc., you really have no employability, no skills. This is what you do, right? It's like working at McDonald's nowadays. Obviously, McDonald's is not enough. But so it's the lowest job, and all of the prophets went through it. And obviously, some of the wisdom behind his humbleness, etc. But the amount of time that they spent alone, just chilling, looking at things, because the goats and sheep are eating. You just need to give them time. And if a wolf comes and you need to hit it, it's nothing else you can do. No wolf comes every day, right? That's why we have the story of the wolf, because the kid got bored, basically. So it's a really, you just sit there, and it's one of these stories from the Umar series on NBC. If anyone's watched the life of Umar, the first episode, right? It starts with this deep one, which sold me on the show. I sometimes go back and just watch it for that line, which is Umar ibn Khattab was out in the desert, and he's talking to his brother now because he spent the night with them, and he says that if you spend time with the camels the way I do, then you learn to understand them, and you learn, most importantly, that each of them have their own personality and character. And he says, then you learn, and تراعي كل جمل لنفسها. So you take care of each of it by itself. وتدبر الجماعة. So you make arrangements for the whole group. What's the best for the group? But you take care of each of them individually. And for me, that was like a people thing. Like you look at, it was just like a people management thing for me. And I found it really inspiring. But everyone will find, different lessons just looking at that. So like, Umar bin Khattab found it in camels, and then in the same thing he goes and applies it. He's like, فإذا يدبر الأمر على الجمل فأكثر على الناس. يعني it will be more so on people. I was meant to quote it directly, but it literally just went from my head now. So he said that basically, if this applies to camels, it applies more so to people, and you see this the way Umar bin Khattab dealt with different people. Some people require harshness, some people require a little bit of ease, and then you can go into like what does a person appreciate. So this is like a lesson that he got sitting there looking at camels. And the Anbiya, when they would spend so much time with nature that they would ponder and develop an understanding themselves, and they went and they liked this sort of solitude. So the Prophet would just go into Barakarat for a couple of days and just literally sit. There was a tiny cave. He could just see the Kaaba from there. He could just go there and think. And I think as a generation, this is something that we've lost the ability to do because we have our phones at all times. If you get bored at an airport or a waiting lounge or anything, you pull your phone out and you go on Facebook and you do this. Just refresh your feed 5 million times. Which means that we've lost the ability to just sit there and think and just be alone with our thoughts and just really reshuffle them in our waking time. So it means that we don't get the chance to look at. So we talked a lot about looking at nature, but the last thing I want to say was look at people as well. Obviously it's not practical to go out every single day into like a campsite or something like that. And if your walk isn't, like through from Opal to the dental school or something, where you walk to Western Park and you get to see these trees and stuff. If you're just living in, look at people, because people are creation of Allah as well. And there's little examples even in our own body of how one of the most inspiring stories for me was there was a group of people who went out into the rural areas and they met this boy who had his eyes sewn shut. And the reason he had his eyes sewn shut was not because there was any problem with the retina or anything. Like, obviously the eyes are very complicated organ. The only problem he had was that the single muscle that controls the blinking of the eye, that didn't function. And because that didn't function, his eye had to be sewn shut. And it's like, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything, but like even that little thing going wrong caused such a huge problem to you. And if you've ever broken, like I broke my little toe on my left foot and I couldn't walk. And then she said to the doctor, I was like, who cares? Like, you can walk, right? He's like, no, don't walk on it. You will never fix it, and then you'll always have a twisted foot, like a twisted bit on the end. And I was like, okay, literally that pinky is so important to your function. So look at your own body, look at your fingerprints and how complicated they are. Look at the little things. This is something to reflect upon of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it there. And through that you learn a lot about people, a lot about thinking, etc. And you learn a lot about yourself. And I wanted to just conclude with this last thing, which is the Prophet ﷺ used to say this to his Sahaba a lot. And to the extent that he said this to Ammar bin Yasir at one point, which was a question was, كيف تجد قلبك? How do you find your heart? The point of all of this, we can come to an Islamic lecture and all of that, but it's all about those Iman boosts and Iman rushes and keeping your Iman at a high level. And before we go into the Ammar bin Yasir story, there was a Sahabi who came to the Prophet saying, Ya Rasulullah, I feel like we're munafiqs, like I feel like we're hypocrites. He was like, why? And he said, when we come with you and we listen to you talk about Jahannam and Jannah and all of that, we fear Allah so much. And then when we go back home, then we go get busy in our stuff. And look, the amount of stuff they probably have is so much less than ours. And he was like, but we just lose it. And that proves that obviously your iman's going to fluctuate. And the struggle is to keep it on a high at all times. And it's the same that Umar bin Khattab came to the Prophet and he said, and look at how honest he was. He was like, I understand that we have to love you Allah and we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot, but I love you more than everything else in the world except myself. And he was like, Umar, this needs a bit of work. And so Umar went back and he stayed and he thought about this again and again. And he came back a few days or a few months later and he said to Rasulullah, he said, okay, I've got it. Now I can genuinely say that I love you more than I love myself. And he was like, this is, you've achieved it. You've gotten to the point. So it's something that we need to constantly struggle with. And this, looking at nature, making our adhkar that we do, like the du'as that we read regularly off the tip of our tongues, to make those come alive a little bit, to make du'a and salah where you really feel Allah's presence a little bit, that's what's important. And that's what you need to go out and do. And so to end with the Ammar bin Yasir story, where Ammar bin Yasir went, and when he was being tortured, he said under duress, they said to him, "Sub Muhammad, say something bad about Muhammad." And his parents had been killed by these people, and he was under so much stress and so much physical pain, and like he just wanted it to end. And so he just said it. He just said like a few words, because there's metal being used to brand him and all of that, and he just said something bad, and he came out and he felt so bad, and you just imagine how heartbroken he must have been. And Umar actually went up to Abu Bakr crying, and Abu Bakr comforted him, took him straight to the Prophet and he felt to the Prophet, this guy's lost, this guy's given up his family for Islam, he's lost both his parents, he's got nobody else, and he's so regretful about one thing he said bad about the Prophet. And the Prophet said to him, how do you find your heart? He was like, of course I believe in you completely. When he said I believe in you completely, he meant it. I said, but that's what's important. And that's what we need to work on. And that's inshallah what we can try and work on. So jazakumullah khair. And I'll end with that inshallah.